Welcome to the Canadian edition of Gospel Truth with Andrew Womack, celebrating 25 years of sharing God's unconditional love and grace on television.
Andrew, thank you so much for obeying God, and just thank you for all the teachings and opening up doors for us to learn from you.
Andrew, you are my teacher, and I appreciate you for all you've done for me and my family.
And now, here's Andrew.
Welcome to our Wednesday's broadcast of the Gospel Truth. Today I'm continuing to talk about a hardened heart. That's kind of a negative title, but it's a positive message. It's talking about we've got to analyze and understand that it's our hard heart that hinders God. It's not His heart that's hardened towards us. It's our heart that becomes hardened towards Him. And I've got this book on this that we're asking for a donation of any amount for the larger book. We'll send out the little booklet as a free gift to you if you cannot or would not send anything for the teaching. And then I've got CDs, DVDs, and a USB. And of course, you can go to our website, and on our website, you can get all of these teachings free of charge. We have over 200,000 hours of free teaching available on our website. If you were to listen 24 hours a day, it'd take you 22 years to go through everything that's free on our website. If you listen 8 hours a day, it'd take you 66 years to go through all of that material. So please take advantage of it. But this teaching on hardness of heart, even though that title is somewhat negative and most people think, I don't have a hardened heart, that's one of the problems. And I was sharing the first 2 days of this week out of Mark chapter 6 about where Jesus told His disciples when they saw Him walking on the water, and then He came into the boat, and the disciples were translated to the other side of the lake just instantly, and they were sore amazed in themselves beyond measure and wondered. He basically rebuked them because they had a hardened heart. If their heart had not been hardened towards God, they would have expected to see Him walking on the water. He's the one that constrained them to get into the boat and go to the other side. There was resistance on their part. They could see that a storm was coming. They knew it wasn't smart to go out on the lake in conditions like that, and yet they were committed enough to God that they went against their natural senses and they went out there. But when they got into the storm, it's just like they forgot everything. They forgot that Jesus was the one that constrained them to do this. He was responsible for them. He was in the same storm that they were in, so it's not like He was in a house someplace outside of the storm and wasn't aware of what was going on. So He was responsible. He was aware of their situation. If they would have been spiritual, they would have expected Jesus to come walking on the water. Even though that's totally abnormal and outside of natural things, they would have been expecting it if their heart would have been sensitive to God. But their heart was just totally focused on the natural, and they were doing everything in the natural that they could do. And you know, there's a balance here. Man, I've got so many things I'd like to say, and just a short period of time in one program to get it said. But let me real quickly just say that in the 17th chapter of Matthew, the tax collectors came to Peter and said, "Doesn't your master pay taxes?" And he says, of course he does. And so when he came to Jesus, before he could even tell Jesus what happened, Jesus prevented him, and he says, go to the sea and cast in a hook and take up the first fish that you find, and in his mouth you'll find a coin that will pay the taxes for you and for me. So that was totally miraculous. But it's an illustration that you have to have the miraculous and the natural. Did you know God didn't create the money? It's not like He just put this money in the fish's mouth. This money, it was a Roman coin. It was minted by the Romans. Somebody dropped it. All that was natural. This fish found it. It was supernatural how God had that fish find that coin and swallow it. It's supernatural how that fish came and took the very first hook that was thrown in. It didn't say that there was bait on the hook. He said just cast in a hook. So there was a lot of supernatural involved, but did you know if Peter hadn't gone and done something in the natural and taken a hook and a line and thrown it in the water, even though there was the supernatural that the Lord had that fish there, and the very first fish that He caught, that was supernatural how all that worked, there was also a combination of the natural. God didn't just automatically make this money fall out of heaven and put it in Peter's hands. There were some natural things that he had to do, but God did the super, and he did the natural, and you put them together and you get the supernatural. Well, it's the same thing with everything. These disciples, it's not that they trying to keep themselves alive and deal with the storm and stuff. There were things they needed to do in the natural, but you've got to go beyond the natural. And sad to say, most of us, just because of training and our own experience, we limit God to only the natural. Did you know I am not against doctors? There's people that think I am because I emphasize the supernatural, miraculous healing power of God all of the time. But I'm not against doctors. And there are some things, like I prayed for a guy one time who was driving a nail, a concrete nail, in concrete, and as he hit it with his hammer, the nail broke and it bounced off that concrete and it stuck right in his eye. And he came to me and he was bleeding and he was having terrible pain, and I prayed for him and instantly the bleeding stopped and his pain left. And I mean, he was just totally normal, but he had a nail sticking out of his eye. And I said, I believe that God has healed you, but we got to get that nail out of your eye. Do you want me to pull it out, or would you rather go to a doctor and let somebody who knows what they're doing pull it out? And he said, I think I'll go to a doctor. So that was the supernatural power of God, but there were some natural things that had to be done. I am not against doctors and just the natural way of trying to deal with things. But what I am against is people that can't go beyond the natural. And I mean, if something happens, the first thing they do is go straight to a doctor. And they will not believe God unless it's something that the doctors just say that there's no hope. They totally give up. And it's like they've never exercised their muscles. They've never believed God before, and so they wait until something goes beyond the natural realm, and then they're going to start trying to believe God. If you don't believe God over your toothache, over your cold, over a little pain, and if you don't start exercising yourself with these relatively small things, it's like lifting weights. If you can't lift 5 pounds, you can't lift 100 pounds. If you don't exercise and begin to start seeing supernatural deliverance from toothaches and things like that, well then when you come to something that's beyond the ability of man, and they say it's cancer and it's stage 5 cancer and you're done for, well then you are going to just be too little too late. Anyway, I believe that there is a combination of the natural and the supernatural, but there are many people that they just cannot believe anything is going to happen beyond natural means. You know, if they prayed for somebody who had cancer, and if they go to the doctor, and if they get surgery, and if they get radiation and chemo and stuff, and they get over it that way, man, they're fine with that. But you tell them that I'm just believing God and operating in the miraculous, and they can't handle it. We actually had one of our executive assistants that had stage 4 cancer, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed it, but rather than go through the treatment, she had seen how bad those are. She just decided to believe God. And some of my senior leadership got on her case and condemned her. You are not using wisdom. You need to take advantage of everything that the doctors can do. And they actually came to me and said, you need to talk to her. So I went and talked to her. And she says, look, I'm not against those things, but God told me not to do it. So what was I going to do? Tell her, well, don't obey God. You just go to the doctors. No, I supported her. And I said, look, if that's where your faith is, I'll agree with you. And some of my leadership, I mean my CEO at the time, he just freaked out. And he said, she's going to die. But you know what? Within, I don't know, maybe 6 months or a year maximum, she was right as rain, totally healed and over it without any of the medical treatments. And she would go to the doctors every once in a while to let them check her and see what her cell counts were and stuff. It's not like she ignored the problem, but she just decided to believe God. Now there's people watching this program that you would never do something like that. And I'm saying this in love, but it's because you are hardened towards the supernatural. You only can believe for things to come through natural, normal means. And that's a hardened heart. So it's not only people that are in rebellion. You know, one of the classic examples of a hardened heart is Pharaoh. And I forget, if you were to get my living commentary, I've got this all, I figured it out, but I just don't remember the exact figures, but it's somewhere around 13 or 15 times in the book of Exodus, the scripture talks about about Pharaoh having a hardened heart. And I think that there's 12 of them or something like that, all but just 2 or 3 of them where it says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now, God is not unjust to harden our heart. He wouldn't just make a person hard-hearted to where they can't perceive spiritual truth and they're limited to things. He wouldn't do that without them already have made a decision. Pharaoh had proclaimed himself as God, and I can guarantee you that the Spirit of God had borne witness and told him he's not God. At one time he knew this wasn't true, but he just hardened himself because of the advantage of it and stuff like this, and he rejected the conviction of God. And so God was not unjust to just take his decision where he rejected God and just hold him to it. And so Pharaoh hardened his heart first, but then God just amplified on it. And you can read in all of these plagues in the book of Exodus, like for instance, this plague of the frogs. This is in Exodus chapter 8, and in verse 1 it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go to Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs, and the rivers shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thy hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt." Boy, get a picture of this. I mean, frogs were in their food. It says they were in their kneading troughs, in their bed chambers. They wore sandals. They didn't have boots like I do. So, man, when they walked, they were squashing frogs between their toes. This was a terrible plague. And it says in verse 8, it says, "Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, Glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from thee and from thy houses, that they may remain in the river only?" And in verse 10 he says, "Tomorrow." You know, here he is. He's got this terrible plague where frogs are everywhere. And Moses says, "When do you want them to leave? Just name the time and it'll be done." And he says, "Tomorrow." He could have said, "Right now." Amen. This is what a hardened heart will do to you. It takes away logic. It takes away reason. And if you go on through here, if you go into the 14th chapter of the book of Exodus, like I said, he either 12, 13, 14 times, his heart was hardened, and he would come to the end of himself when the boils hit him and were over him, and where fire came out of a clear sky, and where there was darkness over the land for 3 days. The sun didn't shine, and yet there was sunlight, not artificial light, in the houses of the Israelites. And when the murrain came, this plague upon all of the cattle, just when you could go to the Egyptians and all of the cattle were dying, but over here where the Israelites were, there wasn't a single one of their animals that were bothered. All of the locusts came and ate all of the crops except where the Israelites were. I mean, all of these things, to anybody with any normal amount of reasoning, they would be able to recognize that this was God. And Pharaoh would come to the end of himself time after time and say, "I've sinned, entreat the Lord, take away this plague, and I'll let your people go." But then as soon as the plague was over, it says the Lord hardened his heart, and boom, it was just like he never remembered anything. A hardened heart takes away your ability to understand and to reason. It makes you spiritually retarded. And in the 14th chapter, this is after the Israelites had left the land of Egypt, and the Lord told them to encamp in a place where there was the Red Sea on one side, and then there was mountains on the other side, and so it was like a box canyon. And the Lord told Moses, He says, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart that he will pursue after you. In other words, the nation of Egypt had just been devastated. The mightiest nation on the planet had been overcome by a prophet with a stick in his hand. And they had overcome him, and he said, let the people go. And he even asked Pharaoh, he says, pray for me also. Pharaoh had been totally defeated, and yet when God hardened his heart, it's just like he lost all memory of what happened. He lost all reason, and against all logic, he took all of his armies and pursued after the Israelites. And God told Moses, I'm going to put you in this place, and it will entice Pharaoh to be able to come and fight against you, and I'm going to destroy Pharaoh and all of his host. And so they came down, and they had a pillar of fire that followed them by night and a cloud by day. And as the Egyptians came down, this pillar of fire came, and it blocked the entire valley, so that there was just fire blocking so that the Egyptians couldn't come. And the fire was light to the Israelites all night long as they crossed the Red Sea. This is Exodus chapter 14. And they crossed the Red Sea. The Lord split the Red Sea, and they walked across on dry ground all night long. It took all night to cover that distance. And this cloud of fire gave light to the Israelites, but it was darkness to the Egyptian. There was fire, and yet it wasn't producing light on the Egyptian side. It was producing light on the Israeli side. But this is a great miracle. And then in the morning, after the Israelites had gotten to the other side, it says that the Lord took away the cloud, took away the fire, and He hardened Pharaoh's heart. And with a hardened heart, now think about this. If you had gone through the 10 plagues, if you had had your son killed, the firstborn, and if all of these things had happened, and somehow or another you were dumb enough to go ahead and chase the Israelites, and then this pillar of fire comes, and for 12 hours, this wasn't just some brief emotional thing that just in the moment he had his emotions rise up. I mean, for about 12 hours, they just sat there watching this supernatural fire of God protect their enemies and give light to them and darkness to the Egyptians. If you had seen all of that, it seemed like somebody could have figured out that this isn't working. And yet, when the fire left, they went right into the midst of the sea, and it says that God took off their chariot wheels. And finally, one of those lightning fast minds said, the Lord fights for the Israelites. I think I could have figured that out before that. But see, this is what happens when your heart is hardened. You just can't think straight. And brothers and sisters, let me tell you that there are a lot of people in our world today that we wonder about, how is it that people can't figure out whether they're a male or a female, what restroom to go in today. And they can't figure out that opening up the borders and letting in 10 million illegal aliens, and many of them, like in Venezuela, they emptied all of the murderers and the rapists, and they emptied their jails and sent them into the U.S. People can't figure out that that's going to increase crime. And then they wanted to disband the police. They wanted to defund the police. And because of it, in these blue states, the ones that are run by liberals, they are having increased crime. And people can't figure this out. People can't figure out that it's wrong, that two men can't be a husband and wife, and two women can't be a husband and a wife. They can't have children. And you just look at things that are going on, and you wonder, how can people do this? It's because of a hardness of heart. And this is exactly what happened to Moses and Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a classic example that there are like 10, 15 times that it says God hardened his heart, and all of a sudden all reason left him, all logic left him, all common sense, and he just did crazy, stupid things. And so finally God took their chariot wheels off, the water came in upon them, and killed all of the Egyptians. And all of that happened because of a hardened heart. I'm going to share some other scriptures with you. I'm running short of time today, but we're going to get into the 8th chapter of the book of Mark. And that's a second instance where the Lord fed another multitude with a very limited amount of food. This time he had 7 loaves and a few fish. Previously, he only had 5 loaves and two fish. Previously, he had 5,000 people. This time he had 4,000 people. So this time he had more food, less people, but nonetheless, it wasn't enough to feed them. And he fed the multitude with 4,000 men, and he had 7 baskets full of food left over that time. And when all that happened, he came to his disciples and he said, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod." And they thought when he used the word leaven that he was talking about bread, and they didn't bring any of that bread with them. And so they were thinking that somehow or another it was him commenting on the fact that they should have brought some bread with them. And he turned around and he says, "How is it that you don't understand and you don't perceive?" He says, "Is your heart still hardened?" And he begins to show you that an inability to perceive, an inability to understand is a characteristic of a hardened heart. And he goes on to say, "And do you not remember?" A lack of perceiving, a lack of understanding, a lack of remembering are conditions of a hardened heart. And on our program tomorrow, I'm going to amplify on that and just begin to start describing this. You know, you cannot prescribe a treatment for something until you know what you're dealing with. If you just went to a doctor and if he didn't examine you and find out what was wrong, and he says, "Well, let's give you chemotherapy, let's cut some part of your body off," and yet, you know, you didn't have anything that helped. You have to diagnose what the problem is, and that will prescribe what the treatment is. And so until you understand what a hardened heart is, until you understand why it is that you can't perceive, that you can't understand, that you can't remember, that having eyes you can't see, and having ears you still can't hear the voice of God, until you understand the problem and recognize that the problem is a hardened heart, then you can't solve it until you understand what it is. And so on my program tomorrow, I'm going to get into some of those things. But I really encourage you that even though this may not be something that makes you stand up and want to shout, you need to recognize the damage that a hardened heart is doing to all of us and how it makes us cold, insensitive, unfeeling, and unyielding towards God. That's a definition of being hardened. So I've got this book on hardness of heart. We're offering this for a gift of any amount. And I promise you, this would really, really help you. And if you could not or would not send anything, we'll send you the little booklet as a free gift, free and postpaid. And the booklet's good, but the book is much, much better. If you can, I encourage you to please get the book. And then we also have CDs and DVDs, or you could get a USB that will have the audio and the video on it. And I promise you, this teaching, if it does for you what it's done for me, this is something that you will use every single day of your life once you understand this, and it'll make a huge difference in your relationship with the Lord. So please listen to our announcer as he gives you all of this information about how to receive these products, and then please call or write today.
Learn how to keep your heart yielded and responsive to the Lord when you get Andrew's series, Hardness of Heart. Andrew is offering his booklet, An Introduction to Hardness of Heart, as his free gift to you today. This offer is limited to one free booklet per household and is available in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Contact us today to receive your free booklet. Andrew's complete series, Hardness of Heart, is available as a book and as a newly updated CD album or DVD album made from our daily television broadcast. You can also receive the full teaching on a USB that includes both the audio and video. Each of these valuable resources are available for a gift of any amount when you contact us. For a limited time, you can also receive the book and USB together as a special bundle for just $28. Go to awmc.ca to see all the ways you can get these products. We want to remind you of Andrew's Living Commentary software. The Living Commentary includes more than 50 years of Andrew's Bible study notes and personal encounters with God, and is available as a web-based software that you can access by computer or any mobile device. Get Andrew's Living Commentary today. You can call the Andrew Womack Ministries Canada Helpline Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time at 647-348-2220 to order. Do you want to dive deeper into God's Word? Now you can with Andrew Womack's Living Commentary.
I'd like to encourage you to get this living commentary. We call it a living commentary because I'm still writing it. And I've written footnotes on over 27,000 verses in the Bible. And I promise you, this is powerful. It's not only got my commentary and experiences and revelations that God has given me, but it's got Greek and Hebrew words defined. It's got references and just all kinds of things here. It would be a tremendous blessing to you. So check it out, our living commentary.
The Living Commentary includes 2 dictionaries, 4 commentaries, and 12 versions of the Bible, plus atlases and biblical maps. Grow in the Word with Andrew's Living Commentary software. You can enjoy the Word of God wherever you are, on your phone, computer, or tablet. Download the Living Commentary today at awmc.ca.
I'd like to encourage you to take advantage of our daily devotion. This is something I wrote many years ago. I have a different devotion for every single day of the year, and I read these often, and I'm amazed at some of the things the Lord said through me. They're really, really good, and I believe it would bless you. So you can get this sent to you automatically. I encourage you to go to our website and sign up and get our daily devotion for every single day of the year. I want to let all of you know who are watching our program in Canada that we have a Canadian office. We also have a website, awmc.ca, and you can go there and you can get all of our materials sent to you from our Canadian office. You can become a partner with us and give, and the money will stay right there to help us reach people in Canada. We would love to help you and minister to you any way we can.
To learn more about the vision and mission of Andrew Womack Ministries Canada, be sure to visit our website at awmc.ca. While there, you'll also find details about all of the products available and be able to access many of Andrew's teachings absolutely free. You can listen to them while you're online or download them for later and listen on the go. If Andrew's teachings are making a difference in your life, consider becoming a grace partner with Andrew Womack Ministries Canada today. Go to awmc.ca or call our helpline Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time at 647-348-2220. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to hearing from you today.